Hi, this is Grace, and at the time of shooting this video, I am standing on the northernmost part of San Juan in Puerto Rico. This is my day one here. I came here on a cruise that left from Miami, and my first stop was in Haiti, and this is the second stop along this Caribbean cruise, and today I am in Puerto Rico. So what I wanted to do is shoot a video that combines two questions that I received from you, my viewers. In a previous video, I talked about articulation, how to become better at communication, whether from stage or one-to-one, one-to-many, how to articulate better. And in a second video, I talked about career transitions. And then in the first video, I got questions on, well, how do I improve from that? How do I improve my communication? And in the second video, I got questions about, okay, what if I'm transitioning to a career in a different country? So what I wanted to do in this video is combine the two and give you some tips on how to become a better communicator if you have transitioned and moved to a foreign country. So come walk with me along the streets of San Juan and we'll get right started. So I'm going to give you 5 tips on how to improve your communication when you have transitioned and you've moved to a different country. So tip number 1 is get your bearings straight. You are now in a different country, a foreign country, and you are about to meet your local friends, right? Build a community and meet people who are in your industry or who are in the company that you're about to work for. The first thing is to get your bearings straight. What do I mean by that? It means that you want to take some time to familiarize with yourself with their environment. They are going to be locals. A lot of people you're going to work with that you're going to meet are going to be expats or locals who have spent some time in this country, so they're familiar with the streets and where things are. It doesn't mean that you have to know as much as a taxi driver, but it means that you have to be able to speak on some of the milestones and some of the landmarks, the more well-known landmarks in their environment. And that way, when you speak from that standpoint, it sounds like you spent some time to get to know them and get to know their culture. So when you do take that time to familiarize yourself with the major landmarks and with the major things about their culture, and you communicate from that knowledge, it shows them that you are interested in their culture, you're interested in them as people. So take the time to explore. Be brave about that. Take the time to, get out your GPS and visit some milestones, to Google about what's important here, what are people excited about, and from that standpoint, that is when you can show up as interested in being friends. Tip number 2 is to learn their local greeting. Every language, every culture is going to have a local greeting, and it could be a slang, it could be something that is very regional, but you want to learn that. And there's many ways you can learn that. You can go on YouTube, you can Google it, you can ask people who you know that share that same culture. And it doesn't mean that you have to study the dictionary and become fluent in a week, but just learn the local greeting so that when you say it, they know that you're taking an interest in their language, and you're taking an interest to be able to communicate them and to connect with them on a deeper level than more than just the surface. So figure out what are the local greetings that you can say hi to them, and when you say hi to them, they know that you've taken that extra step to do a little bit of research in figuring out what is regional, right? And I will also say that learn what are the polite statements, the please, the thank you, the you're welcome, and a sentence that shows that where you can say where you're from. Right? That way they have a standpoint of where you come from, and that you're managing their expectations that you're not going to be fluent in the language yet. Right? So these are some of the things that you can do when you are meeting locals for the first time that can help build that relationship from a foundation of, yes, I am interested in you as a person, and yes, I am interested in your language, and I find it beautiful and interesting enough to have done this research beforehand. Tip number 3 is to familiarize yourself with the food and the drink of their people. And now, it doesn't mean that you have to become very well versed in alcoholic beverages. I don't drink alcohol, but it just means that you know what they like, and you've tasted some of their food, and you're familiar with some of their food. Because if you look at a lot of the celebrations that happen, no matter what culture or background they're from, celebrations, events where you get to know someone, it usually happens around food and beverage, right? So the chances if you are beginning in a different industry, if you are about to connect with new people, that it will happen around a table where there's food and where there's beverage. So you don't want that to take you by surprise, right? And you also want to come at it with the attitude that, yes, I am familiar with it. This is not completely foreign to me, because you've taken the time to do your research and to be exploratory. And therefore, you can come at it with an open heart and an open mind, and nothing's going to catch you by surprise. Tip number 4 is about the accent. If you are going to a foreign country, one that you've never gone to before, chances are the accent might be hard to understand. When I did my master's degree, I did it in Edinburgh, Scotland, and that was my first time in the UK. So if you've never been to Scotland, or if you've never met anyone from there, the accent, the Scottish accent, is quite difficult to understand. So I had struggled with that in the classroom, in front of talking to my teachers and my professors. They were all locals, Scottish locals, and they had an accent that was so thick I couldn't understand what they were saying, and I couldn't understand when they were lecturing. I couldn't understand the classes. So this was something that I had to get used to. So the tip that I would give there, especially if you are in a country where you don't speak the language, and when they do speak English, the accent is hard to understand, that's where it might be helpful to learn a phrase in their language that says, "Can you please speak slower?" Or, "I don't speak your language," or "English only, can you please speak slower?" If you learn that phrase in their language, and of course say it very politely, that would help them to communicate with you, and it will help you to be able to understand what they are trying to say. So one thing that I did eventually when I was in Scotland for my master's degree was that I met a lot of local friends, as many as I could. All of them that were born and they grew up in Scotland and they had that accent. I would practice by making friends with them and hanging out with them, and just to be able to listen to it on a daily basis until eventually there was absolutely no problem and I could understand it just like it was any other language. Tip number 5, when you have relocated and you have transitioned to a foreign country and you want to become a better communicator in that new country, it is to do your research and to understand on a cultural level what is acceptable to them and what is disrespectful. And this is really important because most of what is communication is nonverbal. Right? The words that you speak, the words that you choose to articulate, only make up 20% of the communication. Most of it, no matter what the background is, no matter what their culture is, they're going to receive from all your nonverbal cues. So you want to make sure that your gestures, right, and the way you dress and the way that you show up isn't going to be offensive to their culture. And depending on what country you move to, some of these norms, these social norms and what's acceptable is very unique. So you want to take the time to do your research. You can watch a YouTube video about that country or read some books about it from tourists or from locals who've written about their culture, and to figure out what is acceptable and what isn't. Right? And I know that sometimes you might find that it might be difficult to adjust to, but remember, you are moving to their country. You are on their turf. These are people who are locals who grew up there. So it's very important that you respect where you are going to. Until such point that you can become friends, you want to be able to make sure that you are putting your best foot forward and that you respect the turf that you are going into, because they are going to be welcoming you into their hearts, into their networks as well. So this is my gift to you, and I thought of you as I was walking the streets of Puerto Rico in San Juan, and I wanted to record this video to answer a couple of your questions from you, my viewers. And it's very important to me, and I read every one of your comments. So if you liked this video and if you found it helpful, give me a thumbs up and comment below. Have you relocated to a new country? Where are you now? And what are some of the struggles that you've been having, some challenges you've been having integrating and communicating in a foreign country? So I'd love to hear from you. Remember to give me a thumbs up, and also remember to ring that bell so you receive notifications each time I upload a new video.